What's up, Hobby Jogger Nation? It is February 1st. I always want to say February because that's how it's spelled, but it's not February, it's February. And the community challenge just ended on the Supwell app, so it was one of the coolest things to see. Everyone from all across the world. And by the way, we do have people all across the world on the Supwell app. And in the podcast analytics this week, by the way, people don't even know we have a podcast. It's one of the best running podcasts out there. The podcast analytics told me we have listeners in over 100 countries, which is just, what? That's wild. So shout out to everyone in Mozambique listening to the podcast. Legit, bro. We legit have people in Mozambique listening to the podcast. That's what the analytics told me. It's February, which means the community challenge has ended. And it was so cool to see everyone with the frosty beards getting after it. My guy James Northey and Johan Gibkiss doing crazy treadmill runs. Maya doing a bunch of treadmill runs. Everyone being consistent, putting in the work all January. I don't need to do a challenge and say giveaway. I'm going to give away AirPods and shoes for people to get after it. The people on the app just want to get after it. It added a new dimension. So it's over. February, what should I do? It seems that giving away stuff is the best way to get people into the app. So yeah, if you have suggestions of the best way to get people to sign up for the Supwell app, let me know. But other than giving away free stuff, we have the best buy, sell, and trade marketplace for gently used running shoes. We have the best community of hobby joggers. You can post questions about your training. You can ask and answer questions. You could post accountability. If you need accountability, you can also look at people getting after it. And we have a Running Warehouse discount code. So 20% off of gear and 10% off of fuel and used shoes. So those are three pretty good reasons. I think it's the best dang running app out there, and it's only going to get better. All the money I make right now from this is going back into the business to make everything better. New merch is coming, investing in merch. We're going to invest in improving the app. I'm investing in getting a social media person so we can bring the fire content to Instagram. So if you like the spirit of building, if you like getting after it every day, come on into the app because that's what it's all about. Enjoy today's video. Saturday mileage, baby. Another beautiful day in the hill. It's been a while since I could say that, because another beautiful day in Mint Hill implies that yesterday was beautiful, which was not the case. We weren't stacking beautiful days back to back recently. We were stacking atrociously cold days, violently cold days. Some might say they were violently cold. But we're back to normal Carolina weather, and I'm feeling back to top performance in my training. Hey man, winter is the hardest month. I've been talking about this so much recently. We can feel like we're in a plateau. We can feel like we're stuck in a rut. It can just feel all around harder during the winter. Just like it's hard to get this Neo Santa upper on my foot. Definitely the weakest part of this shoe, the upper here. Yeah, I wanted to talk through what to do if you're stuck in a rut, how to identify if you even are in a training plateau, and some changes you can make, and also that you should make, and maybe some changes you shouldn't make based on how you're feeling. Because, man, this winter in the past, I'd say 6 weeks up until this week were some of the hardest training times I've had probably since 2022. Everything just felt harder. It was cold. Schedule was stacked against me because it was the holiday season, and then I had to travel, just getting miles in left and right. But these are the periods where we learn and we grow, and sometimes it's just as much about the system as it is about the actual runs themselves. All right, let's get out here for this run. I didn't even realize it rained last night. So first, what is a running plateau? What does it mean to be stuck in a rut? Well, for me, stuck in a rut feels like we're putting in the same amount of work or more work, and the effort is higher and the results are not there. So maybe running at a 8-minute per mile pace for us normally feels like a 6 out of 10 effort. If we're in a down period, a rut, maybe that feels like a 7 or 8 out of 10 effort. Paces feel harder. Maybe motivation is lower. And paces aren't getting faster in workouts. Now, the first thing I always do whenever that's the case is look at my fueling. I talk about this so much because that is the easiest way. If you're feeling low energy during training, that's the first diagnosis. How has my fuel been? Am I getting the right number of carbs? It's also the easiest fix. You can fix that in a day or two, or even in some cases in an hour. If you're training at a high level, carbs affect mood a lot. So that's the first thing I would look at. Also, sleep and recovery. Are you getting in the calories? Are you sleeping? I always aim for 7 hours average, rolling 7 days in. I sleep with my running watch on and it tracks that. That's one of the few health metrics that I use. Mileage, pace, and sleep. Those are the 3 most important metrics for me. And calories, but I don't track calories. I just go by feel on eating. That's the second thing, man. Sleep can affect mood and energy and performance so much. If you're sleep deprived, it's the equivalent of being drunk in some cases for your cognition. And for running, if you're averaging 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep a night, you're just not going to have the same energy and verve. Motivation can be lower. Everything can be lower. And the third thing to look at in terms of easy fixes, or at least simple fixes, not that these are easy, is just your frequency, your volume, and your intensity. Because overtraining, but adding too much intensity or volume can really decrease your motivation if you're not ready for it. If you've stacked a lot of runs, you can feel flat if you're not recovering. And the calories and the sleep will also help you recover. So being under recovered, whether that's because you're not eating enough, you're not sleeping enough, or you're running too hard, or the volume is too high, that can lead you to feeling flat. So those are the things I would look at in terms of easy ways to diagnose what the root cause is. That was mile 1, 8:07. And I would also look at the setup of your week. I would evaluate your system and your structure, whether you're following your own training plan or somebody else's. So anytime after I finish a goal race, whether that's an ultra that I did or all the marathons I did last year, I will stop the system I'm using, go back to accumulating normal mileage, and I'll reevaluate the setup of my week. And it's always different, right? Because different times a year you'll have different responsibilities. Maybe you have a one-on-one. In my case, a one-on-one with my manager is on a certain day. My day for school drop-off is on a certain day. There's soccer practice for Mason on a certain day of the week. So the flow of the calendar for me influences how my week is set up. So I'll place workouts and big double run days on different days of the week accordingly. And similarly, the types of workouts I'm doing will change based on the goal. So I'm gonna speed microcycle
right now. I've committed to 1 month of focus on improving my 1,500 to 2 mile speed, my top end speed. And so I'm doing 2 hard workouts in the middle of the week and the 20-mile long run. What does that mean? Recovery runs, those are getting slower. The mileage coming down. I'm not trying to stack 120 per week like I might in peak marathon training. Workouts are getting faster, and my long run is also shorter. I'm capping out at 20 most weeks instead of trying to go 20, 22. So the point here is that look at your system. If you're just holding on to a system, and I can even find myself doing this, right? If you're just holding on to a system with no goal, no purpose, that could be the cause of feeling like you're in a rut too. If you're doing the same thing for 5K training as you were for 10K training, or you're doing the same thing during base building as you were during your marathon block, you might feel flat because you already had that stimulus. Or maybe you're trying to keep the intensity up too high, or running a place that's not right. So the first one here, first tip, listen to your body. All these things I'm saying, calories, sleep, evaluating the system, recovery, flow of the week. You got to listen to your body. You got to accept where you are. That's the whole thing about training by feel. You learn what different paces feel like, different intensities feel like, how it feels to run on tired legs, how it feels to run on fresh legs, when we need an extra recovery day, when we need to fuel harder, when we should dip into the tank, and when we should pull back. But it's so important to listen. That's how we could diagnose if we're even in a rut in the first place. And whether we should push through or pull back. And on this point, man, it's not just listening, it's also doing a thorough evaluation. If you're tracking your mileage, look at that mileage level. If you've never run a 50-mile week until November, if that was the first time you're on a 50-mile week and you've just banged out 8 of them straight without a down week, that's probably why you're feeling like you're in a rut or a plateau, because you need to cut. The body needs to absorb that higher mileage so you can adapt and grow. You don't get faster from the work. You get faster from the recovery when the body adapts to that work. So listen to your body, look at the data, do a deep dive into how your training has been different or hasn't been different over the past month or so. And I've noticed my current running is a product of the trailing 3 weeks. Right, so if I've been running the most mileage in my entire life in the past 3 weeks, I'm likely gonna feel flat. Conversely, if I've been running the lowest mileage in my entire life, my legs might feel peppier, but I'll be getting winded on workouts because the aerobic system might have taken a short dip. So take a look at the last 3 weeks of training and also last 3 weeks of life. Do you have an unhappy spouse, unhappy house? Have you been traveling for work? How's the nutrition been? Look at those last 3 weeks, because all of those factors, how's the sleep? Again, all those factors play into how we're feeling today. It's not just, did I do a workout yesterday? Okay, no, I didn't, so I should feel fresh and fast today. No, that's not the case. You have to look at the last few weeks of training. Man, it's warm out here. That's crazy. I take off this quarter zip. I'm also wearing tights and shorts. That was overkill. I could have gotten just shorts and long sleeve. Yeah, that was 746 a mile. Nice recovery zone. Man, it is beautiful. I can see spring is about to come here. Spring starts Valentine's Day. This is a spring morning sun. These are spring birds. I see the beginnings of some spring buds on these trees. Man, because I said this is gonna be another cold front, I bet. So first step here, listen to your body, look at the data, analyze, reflect. Are you doing too much? Are you doing too little? Are you training the same way you've always been? Second step is figuring out whether you should make adjustments. Should I continue with the way I'm training, or should I change? And this is one where, man, I have personally, throughout the past, up until I've started to climb out of this hole past week or two, it's been tough because the mileage was high, and I've been thinking to myself, should I keep it here? Should I cut? What's going on? Everything is feeling tough. So we have to look at the system and decide whether we should make changes and what changes to make. Now for me, I know that my aerobic gains are not maximized. My aerobic capacity is not maximized. I can continue to run high mileage, 100 plus miles a week, and I will continue to make gains. The effort and heart rate will come down. I'm only a 2:39 marathoner. That pace will continue to get easier with the more miles I stack. So it's not that I've maxed out my aerobic gains. However, it's no longer enough for me right now to purely stack miles. There's a time, first 2, 3, 4 years, where I'm purely running consistently and stacking miles. Our guy Andrew, Midlife Runner, he had a great video about this. It was a members only video he did. Maybe he'll make it public. I should ask him to, or maybe you guys should just sign up for his membership, because he gives out a lot of free game, and it's not free game, a lot of paid game in there. But he was talking about how in his journey, he started off with maffetone training. So lots of relaxed miles, similar to what I talk about, and that got him faster. Up until a certain point though, because once the body adapts, you need to throw something else at it. There's this expression, I forget where I heard it first, but embarrassed. I don't like yelling about random stuff around people I don't know. Embarrass the body. You have to embarrass the body to get new training adaptations to get faster. And when you're just starting out off the couch, or even you could be a professional athlete in a different discipline and be amazingly strong and powerful and proficient at a different sport. But if your aerobic system isn't built, just starting out, getting 2, 3, 4 hours a week of aerobic stimulus, nice and relaxed, whether you train by Maffetone, Zone 2, or just vibes, purely getting the miles and time on feet, that'll get you faster. And if you can run 40 miles a week, doesn't gosh dang matter if it's Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4, Zone 5, Zone 1. If you're getting out there, elevating the heart rate up into at least Zone 2 and staying healthy and recovering, if you're consistently running 40 miles a week for a year or two after not running at all, you will get faster. But there'll come a point where that's no longer embarrassing the body. That is no longer forcing it to make changes, because you will adapt. And so what I've found is that even though I can continue to make gains at 100 miles a week, and my aerobic system is not fully developed, Canova always talks about how it takes 10 years to fully build your aerobic house. Even though that's all true, if I'm running that 100 miles of volume at an average of a 7:30 pace, week on week on week on week on week, I'm gonna feel flat because I'm doing the same thing over and over again, and the body's gonna adapt. Think about it like skill building. If you're teaching a kid to read and you give them Cat in the Hat and they learn how to read that, they'll know how to read Cat in the Hat, but their reading skills won't progress. They're not going to learn any other words. And so consistently stacking a higher amount of mileage than you're doing now and making high mileage feel normal, 100 miles a week feels easy to me now. I could have skipped today's run and still gotten 100. It's not easy logistically with my schedule, and it's not easy when I add in speed, but my body has adapted to that 100 at a 7:30 pace. But to get faster, I need to add in the intensity. And so that's what I'm doing right now, right? And so you can make the call for yourself. What do I need to add in? What should I change or not change? And it could be, maybe for somebody else, if you've never done that 50 miles a week, the best thing you can do is just take a down week, and that'll fix the flatness and the sluggishness and the slump. And by the way, probably should have said this at the beginning, but when I'm talking about a slump or a rut or a plateau, this is about how we feel, energy level. It's not about injury. It's not about, if you're feeling pain when you're running, that's something different. So I want to just caveat that that's not part of this discussion. I have other videos about injury and what to do to avoid injury. This is purely about our performance. But it is a good reminder, talking about injury, that if you are training at a higher level than you've done before, be cautious and conservative and cut mileage when it's up higher than it's been before. And so for me, what I've decided to do is, because my body adapted to that 7:30 pace, 100 miles a week, even 110, 120, I was getting in 115 for a few weeks in a row there. And I've trained at 120 before, so I can get in 115 to 120 with one workout a week. So what I've decided to do, speed up the pace of my workouts, bring the mileage down to 100 to be conservative. So allow the body to absorb the speed at a lower mileage level. And the whole theory here is So I've run one sub 5 mile in my life. One sub 5 mile in my life. That was at the Running Warehouse event, the donut thing. If I run an all-out mile, I could probably do it around on a track in perfect conditions, warmed up, etc. 440 something. Because I ran that in 452. My fitness is better. But I've never run a 440 something mile. I've only run a 452 mile, and that's the only sub 5 mile I've done. So I've decided to work on that fitness factor. And because I've built up the strength at 100, why not keep it there? Why not keep it there? And it's a bit of an experiment to see, but it still is a 20% cut from my max. If my max is 120 or 130, that's a 15 to 25% cut if I'm bringing the mileage down to 100. So if you're feeling stuck, point here is you got to try something different, man. And shout out to Midlife Runner for making me think about this topic. Go check out his channel and video. He had an awesome video. I texted him about it. I guess you can't check it out because it's members only. And I'm already seeing the benefits, by the way, because just this week, Tuesday, I had a 200 meter repeat workout. It was 5 sets of 200, 200, and 400 with equal recovery, running them at around a 450 pace. So that's 2.5 miles of volume at a sub 5 minute per mile pace, which I have never done in a workout. And on Thursday, I had a breakthrough threshold workout. And maybe I would have been able to still run those threshold repeats at 523, 519, 514 without the workout on Tuesday. But developing the speed, and even going back to a few weeks ago, deciding to work in hill sprints, that's given me the confidence to run faster. Mechanically, I felt I was maxing out at 540 pace. Anytime in my head, I said to myself, I'm gonna run 5K pace. It was 540. If I said, I'm gonna run 10K pace, 540. I'm gonna run marathon pace and a little faster, 540. So I was falling into one gear of speed. All my speed was 540. My daily miles were all 7 something. That's the sign where we need to switch up the training. But here's the thing. You have to do it for so long at one level, and these plateaus or ruts are necessary, because when you're training, especially with the volume at a consistent level, that's how you build the strength. That's how you build the resilience. And I've said this before, but I personally, before taking big jumps up, I want to be at a level of volume for a month or two before adding in anything else or boosting it. So sometimes the other side of the coin to a plateau is consistency, doing the same thing over and over. And as long as you're not getting injured and you're recovering properly, there's no downside to continue running the same volume at the same pace. It's not going to hurt your fitness. That's maintenance, that's base building, and you'll continue to develop that aerobic system, but you likely won't get much faster. And you'll notice in your workouts, if you continue like I was doing, to run the same paces for everything. But the farther you get into this game, the harder it gets to make breakthroughs. Whereas when you just started off, you could 5K PR every week. It might take you 9 weeks of training with similar workouts, similar volume, if you've been doing this for 10 years, to progress. And that's why, if you notice, most people make their biggest marathon time improvement from their first marathon to their second marathon. A lot of the gains are purely from mileage, consistency, and also knowing what to do and not to do. in a race and throughout training. So yeah, man, after you evaluate the system and your recovery, take a look at what you have been doing and what you have not been doing. So for me, I realized my mileage was extremely high. I ran more miles last year than many elite marathoners. But was I hitting the same workout paces? Absolutely not. Nowhere close. I can barely hold an elite's marathon pace for these 200-meter repeats. So that tells me I need to work on speed. Likewise, if you're blasting 3 runs a week, as a lot of new runners are, if you're blasting 3 runs a week and they're all feeling like 90% effort, that's a lot of intensity right there. So you want to increase the volume and train at a pace that allows your body to safely do that. That's the whole point of slowing down. So first you reflect and diagnose. Then you want to decide, should I make a change or not? And for some people, continuing to soldier on at the same level, especially if you're injury prone, or if you're newer to an intensity level, or conversely, if you've been doing it for a long time and you just need to keep cranking on similar workouts to get faster, just holding where you are and making sure you're fueling, that's going to be the best thing to do. And then last, decide what changes to make and apply them. It's a beautiful day, man. Look at this. Also, 4-mile recovery run in the books. What a time. And some days, some periods, maybe you just have to wait till the 10 degrees American goes away. And then we can get out here and run in the 40, 50 degrees. It's much easier. Bro, it kind of smells like bacon, and it smells fire. I don't eat bacon, but it smells like bacon. It smells super good. 4 miles, 7:57 pace recovery run, 33 minutes, 14 seconds. And yeah, man, I'll say this again, but being in a plateau or a rut, it stinks. But if you're not getting injured and you're recovering, then it's not the worst place to be. And that's what we have to realize and recognize. And especially in the winter, it's okay to just keep soldiering on and to keep stacking miles. And for me, I try to at least get some strides in there, or one harder run per week, even when it's feeling tough. And if you look at your schedule and it's just not going to work for you stress-wise, time-wise, to get in crazy workouts, just do the miles. Just do the miles and accept that I'm not going to get slower purely by doing the miles. I'm keeping the stress on the body low because I have other life stressors. And I'm going to realize that this is part of the process. And you can only have your foot on the gas for so long. And I had this expression last year, no off season. That doesn't mean that we run 3 workouts every week for the entire year. For me, no off season is a mentality of I'm going to get after it every day and be the best I can. But I also always talk about the resources and constraints. Constraints might be life stress and time. Resources, the same thing, life stress and time. If our time resources are low, or our energy resource is low because it's getting pulled into side projects, we're not going to be able to hammer. And so we have to accept where we are, listen to the body, and accept that there are different cycles of training. We're not going to be training at a high marathon fitness level for the entire year. And we got to use different periods to build different strengths to round ourselves out as a runner. All right, I'm going to get some recovery food in, Charles is getting a massage today. She's getting a nice massage because her mom is here. She's gone. So we can close it out later with some final tips. We went out and did the farmer's market and a bunch of stuff, but I wanted to show you coffee we got from our friends at Night Swim. It's a Bolivia, and they said notes of apple, raisin, molasses, and cocoa. Wash processing. Should be fire. Alright, Max Cushion gang. Let's close it out here.
Alright, so I want to close it out here with 3 takeaways on what to do if you are trying to break through a training plateau. Now, before we get into that part, again, not everything when you're consistently executing it all the time, not everything is going to feel easy, and it might not actually be a training plateau. So the first thing you need to recognize is that sometimes in running, it takes patience. A plateau, or what can feel like a rut, can purely be the requirement to break through to the next level. And that's what we need to remember. There is not always going to be linear progress where 5K PR this week, 5K PR the next week, 5K PR the next week. As we get faster, it takes more work to get to the next level. I said this the other day, but there's this common expression, right? People always say the first million is the hardest to make when thinking about business and being successful and starting a business in general. And the theory is that once you get the operations in place, there's a learning curve. It gets easier to make the second sale. In running, it's the opposite. It's harder to take 10 minutes off your marathon time once you're at a 2:30 versus a 3:30, because there's easier things you can do. For example, if you're just running 30 miles a week, bumping up to 45, 50. That's going to increase the aerobic base. That's going to make it easier for you to hold a 7:30 pace. If you can only hold a 7:30 pace right now for 5 miles, bumping up your weekly mileage and holding that for a month, that is immediately, not overnight, but almost in a month, will make you able to hold that pace for longer. But as we progress, as our paces start getting down into the 7s, in the 6s, it takes more work to break through. That's what I've been experiencing. Last year, I ran that 2:39 marathon, felt that 5:40 to 6 minute per mile pace. I've just been stuck at this place in all my speed workouts. So I have to add different stimulus. So first, identify, am I at a plateau, or do I just need to be patient? Because I would say 80% of the time, we just need to be patient. Now, if we are at a plateau, this is where we diagnose the issue. Am I doing too much speed? Am I doing too little speed? How do my workouts look? Do all my workouts look the same? What is my weekly mileage? And if we're in a system where we're doing the same thing week over week, we're not going to be getting better, right? The whole point of structured training is that we increase the stimulus over time. So even if you're doing a 6x800 workout every week, your body will adapt to that. But if you can increase the pace, you can reduce the rest between that. You could do it in a longer block. So if you're doing 6x800 in a 6 mile workout right now, increase that to 8 miles, and that would be more stimulus. I'm not saying actually do this, but you need to look at your training right now. And if you've been doing consistently for 12 weeks, very similar training, and feeling like you're at a plateau, your body has definitely adapted to that level. And now you are at a plateau, you are in a rut because you've been doing the same thing over and over and over again. The patience part is gone. That's the time to switch it up. So switch up the stimulus. That's number 2. If you are at an actual plateau, if you've been doing the same thing for 10 to 12 weeks, maybe you're not even training for a race, but you just feel like the training is getting repetitive, all your aerobic runs, your everyday runs are in the same zone, your speed workouts are at the same pace, switch it up. If you're not running high mileage, maybe increase the mileage. Take a few weeks off from speed workouts, get that endurance up. And then you can add in some more reps to the workouts you're doing. Or alternatively, if you're running higher mileage, take a down week, add in some speed work, like what I've decided to do. And the longer that you've been running, the higher base you can sustain while still running speed. And this is the beautiful thing about progressing. The beautiful thing about progressing is that if 60 miles a week feels like high mileage to you, and then you run that for 10 weeks straight, and you feel like, okay, now I'm plateauing. I need to add in some speed. Maybe you add in speed for a month or two, and then you can go back up to 60 and train at that higher volume with the speed. So the longer that we've been running, the more our body will adapt to the higher mileage, but also the stronger we will get. And the downside to doing a lot of aerobic miles without speed is that we'll get strong but slow. The downside to doing a lot of speed without aerobic miles is that we'll be fast in shorter reps, but we're not going to be able to sustain that pace for a long period of time. So you have to look at your training and see what your weaknesses are. And even in the training plans that I have created, and I got one coaching client. We're doing a test, right? We're doing a test. I'm going to start rolling out these plans, but even in the training plans I have created, it's pick your own mileage, because I can't tell you what your level of mileage should be for a certain goal, for a certain time goal. Everyone has to choose their own based on how long they've been running, based on their strengths. And so there are key workouts. For example, if you want to run a 3-hour marathon, everyone who wants to run a 3-hour marathon should be able to, in training, you should be able to run 12 to 14 miles of marathon pace in one workout in training at that 6:52 pace. Not everyone needs to do that within an 80-mile week. Some people can do that within a 50-mile week and run sub 3. Some people can do that within a 45-mile week and run sub 3. All depends on how long you've been running, what your relative strengths are, what your relative weaknesses are. So this is why I always talk about train by feel. And then last step here, number 3, once you've identified it, you have to apply and execute. And for me, this is the biggest thing, right? We have our system, whether that's mileage, we have our biases towards training a certain way. But when it's not working, we need to switch it up. We need to find something new. And then we need to believe and build that system and incorporate that into the system. And as with everything in training, it takes time. You're not just going to add in 1 week of speed workouts and get yourself out of a rut. And as with everything, man, you got to give yourself grace. That's the number one thing here. And I should have said this probably earlier in the video, but if you're feeling like you're in a training rut, don't force it. This is what I said earlier this week in the video I did on the 5 things people need to stop doing if they want to get faster. Don't force it. That goes into the same category as doing too much. If you're feeling like every run is hard, cut mileage, take some time off, take a day or 2 off. Do not force it. You can always run more miles tomorrow. But you want to diagnose the problem, figure out what the problem actually is, figure out what your relative strengths and weaknesses are, and then you can add in whether that's more speed or intensity. But training can get very samey, especially during the winter when we're in a base building period. What do I mean by samey? Everything can start feeling repetitive, and that's part of running. But if it gets overly repetitive, every morning we're going out for a 10-mile run at an 8:30 pace, we're not going to be making progress. And you need to decide. This is the gray area. This is the tricky part to navigate. You need to decide, what's the point where I stop base building? What's the point where it stops feeling effective to me to keep doing the same thing over and over? Because if you're not getting injured, and I said this earlier in the video, if you're not getting injured, you can't really do harm by doing the same 10-mile run at 8:30 over and over again. You will get stronger, your muscles will get stronger, you'll maintain the aerobic base, but you're not going to be getting improvements in other areas. Your zone 2 heart rate might go down, but you're not going to be improving your running economy at faster speeds. You're likely not going to be improving your lactate threshold by a lot. Depending on how long you've been running, your marathon pace might improve. But once you've hit a certain point, and you need to figure out this point, what's the point where I need to shift focus from base building and endurance into something specific? And that's where it comes in. It's really helpful to have a goal. And so the third thing here is really just pick your dang goal. Pick a goal. For me, my goal right now and how I snapped out of this rut was, okay, I'm going to refocus on 1,500 meter to 2-mile race pace, do a month at this, and see how fast I can get, so that when I do go back into doing long grinder marathon pace and threshold sessions, and man, we had a grinder threshold session yesterday, 5 by 1 mile. I'll throw it up here. We did, 5 by 1 mile at, the sun's out again. 5 by 1 mile at a 5:30 and below. I think I went 5:35, 5:30, 5:23, 5:19, 5:14. But when I go back to doing 10-mile tempo at a 5:40 pace, that's going to feel easier and more efficient because I've been banging out 200s at a 440 pace, banging out threshold repeats at a 520 pace. So pick that goal, plan, execute. If you're feeling lost, it's always good to have a goal, and the goal does not need to be a race. I should say this, right? Especially if you're in a training rut or a plateau, you don't need to force yourself into a race. I am not forcing myself into signing up for a race right away, but I am forcing myself to figure it out. Not even forcing, but I'm excited about figuring out, okay, what's my training weakness? And so for at a plateau, that is a great time. It's a beautiful time to evaluate our entire fitness and say, what's my weakness right now? Where can I dive in deeper? What can I enhance to get stronger as a runner? Is it endurance? Is it speed? Is it strength? Should I be doing more hill work? Maybe even getting in the gym if I'm getting injured? So those are the key things that you can do to break yourself out. It's just gosh dang hard in the winter. You got to keep the mustard on the dog. You got to be consistent. Take a day off if you need it. But when it gets hard, the other side of this is just mental, right? And for me, continuing to hold on to those non-negotiables, even if I feel like I'm in a rut, even if I'm in a plateau, doesn't matter. I'm getting that 20-mile long run in every week. I'm doing these YouTube videos daily. I'm testing new shoes. I'm running 100 miles a week. I'm holding on to those non-negotiables, right? So you got to pick your non-negotiables. I like to pick 3. And that will also help you refocus and find that why. So that's all I have for you guys today. Another training talk. Let me know what training talks you want to hear. These are fun. We got new shoes coming, of course, but I like talking about the training, mixing it up on the channel. All right. I appreciate you guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.